There's much more to you than you realise. And you might not ever realise that unless that crumbling happens. Film and television was always very powerful growing up. I was doing an art certificate course at Tech, so we'd make, arty little movies in Super 8 and 16mm. What led me into sound was, it was almost like it was a vacant space to be occupied, because there didn't seem to be a lot of respect for sound editors in Australia at that time. The first feature film I did as a sound effects editor, I was 21 years old, and I remember I almost had a nervous breakdown. I'd sort of put a lot of pressure on myself that I wanted to go down this pathway, so there's that anticipation of, I hope I'm good at this. I think I had a certain wanting and longing for success where I was willing to sacrifice parts of myself to get there. The problem with the Australian film industry in the 80s, there never seemed to be a lot of work around, so you'd often find yourself, it'd be months before the next project started. People used to say, you can't just go and work in LA, you've got to be invited. And to me that just seemed like, is that true or is that bullshit? Well, I think the reason I went to LA was probably the same reason I started in the film industry, which was I always wanted to stretch myself, reach for things that were difficult to attain. When I started, we were still doing it the old-fashioned way on analog, magnetic, sprocketed sound, and you would physically cut bits of 35mm to match the film. So everything was very mechanical because there's so much physical work. There was often a crew of people in the room, all the winding of the reels back and forth. It took real physical force to do a good splice. Essentially my job was fun. I mean, I was playing with sound in movies, which was my dream. Yeah, well, everything changed when digital entered post-production. Let's say you had 6 months and a crew of 3 or 4 people. It changed into 6 weeks with one person. There's so much work there. There was never any breaks between productions. So this sort of workaholic attitude I had eventually worked against me because my work-life balance was always out of balance. I never saw my sort of burnout coming, and I thought I really loved my lifestyle. You're always working on a bigger budget and you're getting a pay rise for yourself, but I couldn't say no because I was so hungry. So eventually I actually forced myself into a manic episode. That wasn't something that happened slowly. A few months before I hit that point, I was going gangbusters and thinking I loved life. Well, I was kind of getting high off all the success and achievement. This keeps you believing that everything's fine and sustainable. It's like I fell off a cliff, just hit a wall of running out of energy and becoming depressed. Once you actually start to experience depression, then all those reasons to keep driving yourself fall apart and become irrelevant. There's a sort of shift in my whole meaning of life. What used to matter doesn't matter anymore, and what am I doing? Why am I doing this for? And that's the only thing that really stopped me working in the film industry. It all kind of just became pointless. It's like the momentum had been taken out of this endless drive I'd been on for years. It's a common life crisis moment when they lose their sort of professional identity. If that crumbles for whatever reason, at the time you'll think it's the end of the world and can lead to you feeling a bit lost. I'd never been to Gippsland before. And so as a sort of temporary idea, I thought I'm going to take a break and just get some work doing carpentry for a while. Be outdoors in the sunshine, get back to handling tools, the material, the smell of cut wood. What started out as a sort of temporary idea is what I've ended up doing for the last 20 years or so. Going back to doing something like carpentry and all the aspects that involves gave me a quiet satisfaction at the end of the day, which leads to a quiet satisfaction at the end of the week. Turned out that I could sort of regain my meaning of life and find balance again. That was one of the key aspects of me finding my way out of depression. Yeah, I don't look at it like I lost the time doing sound design just because I switched careers. First of all, you don't know till you know. So whatever experience brings you to a realization, that's what was necessary for the realization. So looking back and thinking you should have known something sooner than you learnt it in life, I think is a bit of a trap. So when you walk away from that, I think it does feel a bit uncomfortable and you sort of feel a little defeated and like you've lost something. But you kind of get over it and realise that was never really who you were anyway. Not in your deep essence. I wanted to climb a mountain and I climbed it. When I got to the top, it's like, what's the next thing I'm going to do? I'm not just going to walk back down and climb the same mountain. The truth is, whatever your profession is a very small part of who you really are. It might be scary, chucking a career that you've invested 20 years in away, but you'll survive it. Everything happens in life is just like, this wave crashing on the beach. It moves past you. So you inhabit the eternal stillness and everything else just comes and goes. There will be pain, but on the other side, you'll be grateful for breaking away from that and realizing that that role you played was less of who you thought you were than you really are. I've been a sound designer, I've been a music editor, I've been a carpenter. I've called myself other titles earlier in life. So in 10 years' time, you could ask me, and who knows what I'll call myself then.